Gypsy Rose Blanchard gets exposed for being a child rapist, and this is what she posts.
I ain't going nowhere, just embrace me, bitch. Always lurking on my page, you don't hate me, sis.
The fact that she gets exposed for being a child rapist and she posts that, it is very telling. She is such a danger to society and her child. But what I think is really, really crazy is that she does not think to herself, like, okay, maybe I should, like, really just keep going with changing my image. She's like, no, I'm going to try to clap back. But girl, you offered up your daughter to her father when she turned 13 years old. And this is an incident report by the police that watched the video of you doing it. How are you coming up here writing this or doing this or singing this? And you just had your hair done and your hair looks like that little guy on Sesame Street. What's the little Oscar the Grouch friend? You know, the little, you know who I'm talking about, y'all. That's like, girl, read the room. You need therapy because being a child rapist is not good. Like, that is not good. And the fact that that's how you decide to clap back. Jesus, fix it, Jesus, fix it. Shocking update. The Menendez brothers' family clashed with the LA County DA. And it actually got really wild. The relatives criticized the LA County DA, saying that he was very dismissive and disrespectful towards the victims. Now, it didn't end there. The defense attorney, Mark, also publicly criticized DA Hodgman's stance on the case. I'm going to play a clip in a moment of what the defense attorney, Mark, had to say. But before I play that, I want to tell you my thoughts on this. Hodgman mentioned that he didn't believe that they were abused, which to me was very dismissive. So I understand where the family is coming from. He also said that he wanted them to basically state what he believed happened in order for them to even get an opportunity from him to be released. So in other words, I have been abused. I have said I've been abused. And regardless of what I have said, you want me to spin the narrative to your narrative. And I think that's getting tricky because I also think he could add charges if that was the case. So now you're saying you want me to lie on my truth to appease you. That man's a narcissist. That DA is a narcissist. That's for one. Hodgman also tried to say that they never stated that they were abused in the first trial, and they did. So that kind of made me sit there wondering, like, wow, are you not mentioning that? Now, I will say this. I do not think unaliving someone or murder is okay. But I will say 25 to life, I think, would be appropriate, or put it in the parole board's hands. Let them assess the situation, see what they feel, and then go from there. But I don't feel as though this should be a situation as to where we should be saying there's, like, their abuse didn't happen, right? And that's kind of an issue for me with this DA. And I already knew that he had it out for them when he first came into office, because he was very clear that he was going to look into it. But he was very dismissive when he said that initially back in January or December when he spoke on it.
That was so ridiculous. It was so over the top. It was really one of the, I mean, it was really beneath him as a new district attorney. I would tell you one thing. Has anybody else put together the fact that, you know, I think I said last time when I heard him about his response to the habeas that the 90s were calling, they want their DA's office back?
And it was interesting that Hochman basically laid out what would be like a closing argument from the 90s as if he was prosecuting the case himself back then.
Alex, this is why I love you. I was watching it and I said, this is great. Apparently, Pam Bozanich, who was the prosecutor in the first trial, gave you her closing argument. There's only one problem. Not one, but two juries heard everything. Not one, but two juries heard all of the cross-examination over weeks of that trial about your litany of lies that you talked about. Jurors heard all of that. All of that was cross-examined on. I don't know what he's talking about because both juries rejected 50% of them rejected the murder. So what are you relitigating? Whose rights are you vindicating? And by the way, he kind of also stepped on, I think, one of the more important things here, which is he mentioned that Milton Anderson is no longer alive. He passed away last week. There isn't a single living family member or victim who endorses Hochman's position today, number one. Number two, there isn't a single living family member or victim who was notified of what he was going to do today, which is a violation of Marcy's law. And he has completely misread the resentencing statute. So for a guy that supposedly did all the hard work, it's astonishing to me that he wants to litigate a crime that 2 juries already rejected his theory on, that only once they took off the table imperfect self-defense. He keeps talking about self-defense. That wasn't ever given to any jury at any time, pre or post. It was imperfect self-defense. So I ought to at least bone up on the law instead of memorizing Pam Bozanich's closing.
What do you say to him saying they're not embracing and owning up to all the lies?
They were cross-examined for weeks, and owned up to all the lies. Read the trial transcripts. I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, he keeps saying we have the record. No, everything he talked about was pre-trial. I don't even understand what he's talking about. By the way, resentencing, this isn't a habeas. Resentencing is focused on what have they done since? What are they doing now? The only reason he keeps bringing up Sirhan is he can't find any other basis upon which to make his a kind of crazy decision, which he didn't even bother to tell the family about. Didn't even tell. I'm sitting here. I haven't even been served with his motion yet. I mean, it's just wild what is happening with this. The DA's office is in the 90s. Maybe they're using the post office from the 90s.
The resentencing hearing, the only thing that would happen if the judge resentences them to life in prison and takes away without the possibility of parole, is that it would go to the parole board. And then the parole board would send it to the governor. But it's at the parole board already because of the governor, so the resentencing is just irrelevant.
You know what's irrelevant was that press conference. That was what's irrelevant. I mean, you want to talk about irrelevance? And by the way, is this Hochman setting up a run for governor? He sure was taking aim at the governor. I don't understand what he was doing here. I mean, it sure seems as if he was testing out he failed in his last statewide run when he ran as a Republican for attorney general and lost in a landslide to Rob Bonta. Then he changed and became an independent when he ran for DA. You have to wonder, is this guy testing out is this a test run for governor?
And that is exactly where I feel he went wrong. He misread the resentencing update, and the way he did that, for me, it was a play on words, right? And we got to keep in mind, he is an attorney, right? And so he knows the right words to use. And I feel like he used certain verbiage to distract the public. For example, he said his dad was controlling and used dominant force. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, when somebody says that someone used dominant force, that is a red flag to me as actual force, right? Dominant force. When do you dominate? A game or where? So him saying that and saying that that's not they weren't addressing that as abuse. I think it was very clear, especially the way Eric broke down about it. It was from the gut when he spoke on it. And I feel like he was very dismissive and playing on those words to manipulate the public into feeling like, no, these are criminals that should be away forever. I also think he didn't look at the extent of their progress. Prison in America is supposed to be all about rehabilitation. And I think he was very dismissive when it comes to the rehabilitation, right? Because if you look at the rehabilitation, they have actually done that, even when they never thought they would see the light of day. So I do think that that aspect is really important to speak on. And I feel like he overlooked that just because he has in his head that he doesn't want them out. Now, he is not the end all be all. A judge is still going to look at this and make an assessment. From what I've heard, the judge that's on this case is one that is in favor of the Menendez brothers. Let's put it that way. So I do think that this is going to actually still work out okay, possibly, but we're going to have to see, because what he just said was pretty damning. But, you know, you never know. We just kind of have to wait and see what the judge says. But I don't trust Hodgman. I feel like he's a very, very shady DA that uses a play on words. And I don't like that. That means you cannot trust that man at all. He's manipulative. I mean, he's an attorney, but he's manipulative, okay? Drop your thoughts down below. I would love to hear them.
Breaking news! Wendy Williams aced her capacity test. She scored 10 out of 10 based off of what sources are saying. And this is a big step, because this is one step closer to her guardianship basically going bye-bye. They said her mental capacity is fully intact. We knew that because we heard her. And I think this is such a good testament to the power of the media. Harvey really, really helped, and Charlemagne the God, like, those two are heaven sent. And I'm very happy for Wendy, because there are so many people that do love her, that made sure that she would get some sort of justice. But I do want people to keep in mind, the people that don't have the connections that Wendy does have, these guardianships in New York, they need to have some type of guardrails, because for her to supposed to be protected, it's pretty much been the direct opposite, and her guardian was using her. But we shall hear soon. I hope in the next day or two, Wendy, or, you know, it might take some time, but her be free. I will be so happy to see Wendy Williams free child. So happy. And she's so nostalgic for me. I'm so sorry. I will forever and always be a Wendy Williams lover. I don't care what nobody say. Fight me.